let's start with Deb. Deb, how would you know if someone was depressed or suicidal, and what would you do to help them?
Basically, my awareness of, excuse me.
Tony told us not to move it around.
Yeah, that's right. My awareness of different symptoms of suicide or contemplation of suicide stem from my own experience of being a survivor. And when I use that term, I mean that I lost my brother from suicide. It has made me, as not a clinician, it has made me hyper aware of people who appear to be in need of counseling. In addition to being a student here at the college, I am also staff and have encountered students who have needed counseling and have, in fact, asked them significant questions, I feel, that led me to believe they would have to go to our counseling office and at least speak with someone to get some assistance. When I look back at my own situation, which was that I was living in Mississippi, and my brother was 49 years old, and he was in Denver, Colorado, with his wife and children. I was aware that Drew was in a depressive state. He had made an attempt on his life, and we all thought that he was getting the assistance that he needed. He was getting counseling, he was on medication, we thought. And 11 o'clock at night, one night in October in '94, I received a telephone call from my oldest brother telling me that he had taken his life, that Drew had. I had never known anyone before that who had completed suicide, either by taking that action. I had known people that had overdosed, that kind of thing. It was a little bit more subtle, but in this particular case, it was very clear what Drew had done, and my whole world basically turned upside down. So, coming back to the question, I've always been the type of person that people usually feel confident in talking to, confiding to, coming to. And I also have that developed radar, if you will, I believe. And so I would ask them significant questions such as, if they had contemplated it, suicide, taking an action, if they had a plan. I look at their body language almost more than I listen to what they're saying to me in answer to your question. If I see someone with downcast eyes, if I see someone bring up something and they're averting their eyes as if there's a great deal of shame behind that. Again, I don't have clinical training, but I know body language enough to see someone who is in a great deal of pain. And so that is why I ended up taking what is called the gatekeeper training here at this campus. And that has helped me professionally and personally as far as basically assisting other people in the community. Just being a part of the prevention and awareness of suicide. So I guess that would be my...
Anybody else want to share their thoughts on how they would know if somebody was suicidal?
Go ahead. Ladies first.
Well, my name's Katie Segura. I'm Vice President of SGA, and I myself have dealt with suicide. Just last semester, I went to La Massage, which is a behavioral center, for about a month. Yep.
My name is Nicole Brown. I'm the president of student government, and Katie's my vice president. And I had an opportunity to experience Katie. Dr. Luby had expressed to me about suicide and the fact that she wanted to do this, her and her lovely staff, with the whole Project Speak. So from the beginning of the semester, I was very apprehensive, and I was just like, oh, okay, here's Dr. Luby with another lovely idea. But after experiencing Katie, and it like really threw me for a loop. I didn't know what to do, what to expect, how to handle her situation. And so after talking with my advisor, Bruce Cook, who is very, very good advisor, he gave me advice about rapidly going and talking to Dr. Luby to see what we could do about getting some help for Katie, because she's my right hand here. So I didn't see any signs or symptoms from her. She's very, very smart. I didn't notice anything out of the norm with her. And so one day she came in my office and showed me some things that she had been doing to herself, and I just couldn't believe it. And so then going to Dr. Luby and her being fantastic, she immediately helped with this situation. And as you see, Katie's here and she's back in school, so I'm really, really happy.
Actually, let me try again. I do notice that personally, because I am a cutter, that a way that I know that people are depressed is, of course, especially when it's hot out, when people start wearing long sleeve sweatshirts while it's like 80-something degrees out and just trying to cover everything up. I also noticed that just there's a change in attitude. Nothing really matters anymore. People just get very lethargic and just show up and go through the motions, and they don't really put anything into their work. So that's some things that I know that are signs of depression or suicide. I would talk to the person, since personally I've dealt with it myself, and it is a serious thing. I would just want to tell them that they don't have to be ashamed of anything. There's a lot of pride. It's very hard to tell people this.
Nicole, a lot of times I hear that people are comfortable confiding in you. What do people look for when they find someone to confide in?
I would have to say someone who's trustworthy. I'm a very, very religious person, and I try to stay biased, and I understand that everyone is different, but I try to let my spirituality within itself complement my character, and so that I'm able to be there for someone else and take myself out of the situation and put Katie's feelings above mine, because I look at her as being my sister. And I want to try to do everything that I can to help my sister out and anyone else that I come into contact with. So that doesn't mean that I have to be about myself and, oh, she's just sick, and just immediately put her feelings to the side. I try to always put anyone that I come into contact, their feelings, their attitude, their whatever they're going through, I try to put it before mine. And so that makes me, I guess, a trustworthy person, I guess.
Would anybody else want to answer the question about who do students confide in?
One of the things that we learned in our student service class, and counselors, some of the great traits that they have are the gentleness, respect, empathy, and warmth. if you can communicate with those types of characteristics, then people will listen to you. But if you come across as arrogant, as judgmental, as talking down to somebody, people sense that. They pick up on that. They don't want to listen to anybody, even if the person's giving, sharing words of wisdom or telling the truth. It'd be like seed falling on hard ground. They want to listen to someone that really, truly, has a heart that wants to help people, and that seed will go deep into their spirits, and hopefully we bear some good fruit.
Deb?
One thing that I wanted to add is that after this happened with my brother, I have over the years gone through bouts of depression myself. And it was, I honestly felt as though I was a burden, just as Dr. Joyner spoke of in his lecture. And that still occurs to me. I'm working through that. But the point I want to make is that how do I put this? I'm sorry. It's very important to me that people understand that survivors are out there, that people are going through situations like this, and that they reach out to them. When I look at myself and what I've been through, if I had not reached out for help, I don't know if I would have been here. What gave me the courage to stay here was, quite frankly, the legacy. Looking at the fact that my brother had completed suicide, and I would never, ever want to give that to my nieces, to the rest of my family. And I do want to be here. I want to make a difference. So when someone comes into my office or I encounter them, the key thing for me is if I perceive that they're in pain, that they need assistance, I don't let go. I will take them wherever they need to go to get assistance, whether it's to Dr. Luby or her many associates and counselors, excellent counselors in the office. That's speaking on campus, but even outside, I don't let go.
Well, let me first introduce myself and explain why I'm probably a good person to answer this question. 9 years ago, I attempted taking my own life. I was very serious about it. I withdrew from everyone. I did not talk to anyone. I didn't want help, because to me it wasn't help. To me it was justified what I was doing. Everybody's life would have been better without me. I didn't even own a gun. I went and bought a gun for the specific purpose of taking my life. I bought a 45 caliber handgun. Waited the 3-day cooling off period, which didn't work out so well. Went up on top of Seabreeze Bridge, November 22nd, 2000, and put the gun under my chin and pulled the trigger. It's a miracle that I'm even here today. I've had a partial frontal lobotomy. I hide my scars very well. A lot of trauma during that time and afterwards. Not one time did I really reach out to anybody. And I think the reason I didn't reach out to anybody is I thought that what I was doing was the right thing, and that everybody would be better off without me, and that if I let anybody talk me into living, that I would be doing the world an injustice. I basically fell into this hole and wallowed in it, and was comfortable there. I had lost that fear of dying and all the things that Dr. Joyner had talked about. And I think maybe the question being why would somebody consider death instead of seeking help from others is maybe they've already made their decision that things will be better without them. Maybe they don't want to be looked at as being weak. You know, there's this stigma that somebody who's contemplating suicide is a weak person or less of a person than somebody who hasn't. And I don't think that's the case. If anything, it just means we're hurt. You know, we're more easily hurt, maybe. I don't know. I think really just to answer the question, I think it has a lot to do with, for me, it was my decision was already made. And it was the best decision for everyone. And, you know, I knew in my mind, you know, I played it all out. My family will mourn and they'll be sad. But at the end of the day, they'll get over it and their lives will be better without me. You know, obviously that wasn't a very clear thinking process on my part. And I've been blessed enough to be a survivor in another sense, not that, you know, I had somebody leave me, but I got to wake up from all that, and life gave me a big slap on the face and said, you know, it's not your time to go. All my doctors were amazed, not only that I'm alive, that I can talk, think, see, and really fit into society as a normal person. I wasn't always like this. I had a very severe head injury, and it took many, many, many years of working on myself as a person and retraining my brain and the way I think to become who I am today. But I'm blessed in the sense that I get to see everything that I would have missed, everything that I wouldn't have been able to experience. You know, at the time I did this, I had a radio show on a popular station here locally. I had a newborn daughter. I had a lot of great things in my life, and I just failed to see them because I was so focused and had this tunnel vision on this worthlessness, helplessness, hopelessness. As cliche as that sounds, those are the feelings. And you don't want to reach out because you don't want to be a burden to somebody else, and at the same time you feel justified in your decision. So I think it's very important for all of us, as not just therapists, not just friends, not just family members, but as human beings, to keep an eye open and ear open, and watch for somebody who might be acting a little out of character, who might be avoiding you, and question that. You know, not in a, I don't know, not in a mean way or anything, or you know, not like the Inquisition, but you know, just in a caring way, question how they're feeling and where they're at, and try and bring that out of them. Because I know I avoided people because I knew somebody that asked me questions, I would have to answer them, and they would talk me out of it. So I think it's important for everybody to identify what the signs are and take the initiative and talk to people about what they might be feeling or experiencing.
Martin?
I'd just like to answer that question as well. First, I'd just like to share just a little personal, my own testimony when I am up here. I had a 15-year battle with suicide. Suicide was a part of my life for a very, very long period of time. I was brought up in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, most of my life, a small town, and from 1st to 12th grade. The family atmosphere that I was brought up in, there was no hugging, there was no kissing, there was a lot of poverty, a lot of oatmeal and bread, and my mother was working all the time, and she wasn't around that much. My grandmother, who grandmother was suffering from dementia and toxic space aliens. She was taking care of us, and my dad killed himself when he was 15 years old. When I was 15, he drove a truck into a tree at about 120 miles an hour. And both sides of my family, a lot of times people have just one side of their family that's dysfunctional. Actually, both sides of my family were dysfunctional. There's a lot of suicide, alcoholism, depression. Most everybody was thinking of suicide that I didn't even think of. My mother was seeing a psychiatrist. She wanted to kill herself for as long as I can remember. My twin brother tried killing himself. He climbed a mountain in a snowstorm in New Hampshire and was going to blow his head off. And he lost a gun on the way up. My oldest brother was on the edge of a bridge, ready to jump off, and the cops talked him out of it. I was pretty much a happy-go-lucky personality. I tried to overcome all that with, having a good attitude, and went to college. Was the first person to graduate college. My first year in college, I was experimenting with drugs and alcohol when I was 17, as everybody did, my family around me, try to cope with. I had a high level of anxiety all the time. The anxiety was there. I was, from what I can ever remember, had ferocious, horrible dreams every night. I was dying. I remember just dying, being killed in my dreams all the time, and it felt so real. Every way you can think, it felt the knives and the arrows, the bullets, and it just went on. It's like drinking, drug, and I went to college, and I went to the 7th floor of an all-men's dorm, and everybody was drinking and drugging, and I was drinking and drugging, and trying to get good grades. My first year in college was homecoming weekend, and it was right in the middle of the first ever state public college, Plymouth State College in Hampshire. It was a massive riot took place, and I was right in the middle of it. I was drunk, I was on acid, I was throwing beer bottles, I got in a fight with somebody. I tried to kill myself. I climbed a bridge in end of my first year in college. I climbed a bridge. It was during flood season, and I was walking at 1 o'clock in the morning, all drugged and doped out. To be honest with you, I didn't care whether I lived or died. I didn't care whether I lived or died, and I didn't care whether anybody lived or died. I had no compassion for anybody. I wasn't an angry person. I didn't want people to die. I was brought up in an environment that was just no love. It was just survival of the fittest. It was dog eat dog. It was Darwinian's theory. And I thought of suicide every day. Suicide to me was that was my hope. I thought of suicide with warm, fuzzy thoughts, to be honest with you. That was my way out. To me, suicide, I was an 100% atheist, and suicide was my only way off this planet, and I thought about it, and I planned it, and I drove a car like a madman. I had listed driving violations like that. I had 3 DWIs. In 1985, I went through my third DWI and my 5 jobs that year, and fighting with my wife all the time. I went to a hotel and grabbed portable music with Pink Floyd, the Wall music. And if you're going to kill yourself, Pink Floyd, they'll take you to the depths of the depression abyss real quick. That, and grabbed a bunch of whiskey and a bunch of sleeping pills and anti-anxiety pills, and I didn't plan on slitting my wrist, but before I passed out, I had a horrible thought that I might live through this and not be able to communicate and have some psychological problems. So I slit both my wrists to make sure that I died. And to be honest with you, I died. I had no fear at all. I wanted to die. To me, that was it. It's over. I'm like an animal, and I thought I was doing the world a favor. The reason I tried to kill myself, to me, it was I was doing everybody a favor around me. I was, totally antisocial. Anything that was good in society or good in a person, that was not me. I just sex, drugs, and alcohol. I thought about sex, drugs, and alcohol all day long, every day. That's all I thought about. I didn't care what anybody thought, and it was ugly. I would go on death tours in my car. I'd drive around 100 miles an hour, pass people on corner. People get in the car with me. Most of them would never get in the car with me ever again. I just did not, had no fear. I remember out racing a cop once in the wintertime and power sliding over every corner, knocking out mailboxes, and just people in my car freaking out, screaming. I said, hey, I told you it was a death tour. I was crazy. I absolutely was a crazy, wild man, and my mantra was, I don't care. And when the heat gets hot, when the pressure gets on, I'm going to kill myself, and it's over. So in 1995, when I tried to kill myself, it was an unsuccessful attempt. Obviously, I'm still here. I woke up a couple hours later, puked my guts out, went to the hospital. It was a totally embarrassing, humiliating experience. There was 3 people there. I remember very vividly, very clearly. I was interrupting the conversation. They didn't want to see me. They didn't care about me. No compassion, no mercy. What are you doing here? And I told them I just tried to kill myself, showed them my wrist, like, no empathy, no compassion. I was like, So I survived that, and he set me up with a psychiatrist, and that helped for a while. My wife stayed with me. We moved to Daytona Beach. We decided we're getting out of New Hampshire, we're going to move to Florida, get away from it all. We packed our bags, $3,000 in our pocket, no jobs, no houses, no friends down here. Ended up in Daytona Beach, and it was like, great. Sun, sand, and surf, a bar in every corner. Like, it just doesn't get any better than this. And that lasted about 6 months to get into bodybuilding, needle dose of steroids up my butt, double dosing. I got to be this just huge UFC fighter type guy. I was in the bars fighting all the time. I hung around with the rowdiest group, the one of the biggest cocaine dealers in Daytona Beach with my buddy, and cocaine was flowing, drugs and alcohol flowing. I was getting kicked out of bars all the time in Daytona Beach. A lot of them, they wouldn't let me back in. I just turned into this Tasmanian devil on steroids. I mean, it was ugly. I would just go into a rage. I couldn't feel anybody hitting me. And it was just, it's unbelievable that I never got thrown in jail. I usually managed to get out of there pretty quick. But I got to rock bottom one more time, and decided this time I was going to blow my head off. If I ever got suicidal again, the first one was a failed attempt. It was embarrassing, it was humiliating. I said to myself, I'm going to take a gun just like this, I'm going to blow my head off, and that's the way I'm going to die. And the day that was going to happen, my wife was leaving, I'd have what I just would call a divine experience that led me to believe that maybe there was a God out there. My wife read me the riot act. I told her I had, an experience that led me to believe that maybe God was real. And we ended up going to a church, and it had another experience that helped me to get over it. And finally, as time went by, through good counseling, I got great counseling from some great psychiatrists who taught me to think rationally about this whole thing, that there was a reason to live, I had a purpose to live, that, you just had to change your environment, you had to get around. I left all my friends behind that were partying. I didn't go back to Daytona, moved out of Daytona Beach. Got me a better environment, got self-help tapes, listened to people like Zig Ziglar and Norman Vincent Peale, started listening to great, just biggest help to me was being able to watch. I started watching better things, listening to better things, speaking more positive words. And I'll just say this, as time goes by, it gets better. I mean, it wasn't easy, but my life is great now. I've been married for 20 plus years. I got 2 beautiful daughters. I was on the President's List last quarter. And right now, I just want to help as many people as I can to overcome alcohol and drug addictions, and that there is hope, there is life after suicide. Living proof of that.
I think one of the main reasons is because, just from experience, I grew up in an alcoholic environment. My mom, provided for me physically, but she didn't provide for me emotionally. The only people that I felt like I had were, my friends. And some of the people that pull me down as far as friends are some of the ones that pick me back up. And I know not having your mom there emotionally and just seeing all your friends who do, and they're like best friends with their mom, and I didn't have that. And I know that there were several times where I was just depressed, and I hurt myself, and my mom found out about it but didn't do anything about it. And so that hurts a lot too, because no matter how scared I am, or scared I was, it would have just helped a lot if she had taken the initiative to say, okay, there's something wrong, we have to change this. And then finally I got free of that. My senior year in high school, she kicked me out, and luckily and thankfully my dad and took me away from that. And my mom threatened to commit suicide herself. And to me, that was the only way she was going to get help. So I called the police. And she was taken to the hospital and, of course, put on this typical 72-hour watch. And then she went to a depression clinic for the alcohol. And she was doing fine for a while, but then I had to move away for college just because I couldn't live at home anymore. I've lived there, 18 years of my life at that point. And I know my first 2 years in college were the hardest because my mom had told me she wished she had an abortion with me because she was upset at me. And then I moved here and I sought out a counselor because I just could not take the weight that it put on me anymore. And that was the hardest thing. I remember and going to see a counselor, and I was sitting there and I had that typical mindset like, okay, and I don't blame, my counselor, she's wonderful. She was running a little late and I almost got up and left. But I didn't. And I think one thing that makes it the hardest part is I compare it to a mountain. It's easier to roll down that mountain and just do away with your life than to climb up it. And I think that's the reason, like, a lot of people don't want to go see somebody is because it's just such a hard battle. But in reality, living in that life and being so upset and depressed with yourself and not wanting to be on this planet is actually, to me, is harder than to climb up that mountain. And I've, been going, I go regularly on a weekly basis, and it has made my life so much better. When making that first step, that mountain turned into a hill. It was nothing after that. And I think a lot of people just don't go because they think it's just easier just to give up than to actually climb that mountain and be in a better place.
I think a lot with what Dr. Joyner had said, a little bit of kindness goes a long way. Just seeing somebody, maybe, walking down the street, we all do it, and you see somebody coming the other direction, and sometimes you kind of turn your head, or if it's somebody attractive, you might try to make eye contact with it. Try to make eye contact with everybody and say, good day, how are you? Just a random act of kindness. You never know who that other person is walking down the street. What was going to be my last day on earth, I went and cleared out my bank account and went out to the bars, drinking. I wanted to eat my favorite Philly cheesesteak, my last meal, and ended up at a strip club of all places, just kind of having my last hurrah. Not once did anybody ever look at me and say, "You don't look right. Are you okay? Are you okay, mister?" And I don't know how I look to other people, but I know on the inside I look terrible. I don't think that I'm that good of a chameleon that I could have hit it that well. Even if it is a stranger, we're all human beings. Just look at a person and say, "Hey, are you okay? I know you don't know me, but it seems like there might be something wrong. Would you like to talk?" Or like I said, just saying, "Have a good day," or being polite and nice, and it does go a long way.
If someone does come to talk to you, I think that, one of the worst things that you can do to someone, from personal experience, like when I went through my problems, I was great. Like, I was on the president's list, getting good grades, new car, everything. So when people point out, well, look at your life, it's going great. What's wrong with you? Why don't you see everything that's great in your life? I think that instead of focusing on that, people should really try to help the person and ask them what's wrong, because even if everything might seem right on the outside, it's not right on the inside. So I just think that people have to take it more seriously and not belittle someone for it, but support them instead.
Major things that I feel as a community, this community, Mississippi, where I lived when my brother completed suicide, actually wherever I've been. It seems that this is not something that people are comfortable discussing. There was a movie out not long ago, a documentary named The Bridge. I don't know if any of you saw that. And it was discussing a number of situations where people had taken their lives on the San Francisco Bridge. It was a topic on Oprah. which I don't watch Oprah normally, I never have time, but I could not believe that it was a discussion that, how dare they bring this topic up, that it might give people ideas. Well, I'll come back to so many things that I've read over the years, and that is, if people have these ideas, you're not giving them to them, believe me. They're there. All you're doing is opening it up so that they can discuss it, so that they can feel safe, and not put such a stigma on it in terms of people looking down on them for dealing with this issue.
I get to deal with a lot of students on a daily basis with SGA, and being that I walk around campus, and a lot of students, they get a lot of pressure, and you can kind of see a little bit on their face. And when I ask them, how is everything going, with the pressure of trying to make the president's list all the time, the pressure of trying to meet up to their parents' standards, the pressure of just trying to compete in society. A lot of students are here because they want a job, and trying to compete with so many other people right now because of the economy, and parents can't afford their children, and they're here, and it's just a lot of pressure being put on people. So as it was said by some of the other panelists, just by saying a nice word, how are you today, and trying not to put so much pressure, even though I know that we all experience pressure on our jobs and in school, just trying to, trying to make it each day. But if we all try to be each other's support system and look at each other as being brothers and sisters as opposed to just being that person I see every day, I think that we'll all be able to, have a sense of empathy for that person. Because if we all look at it as though if that was my son or daughter, brother or sister, I don't think we would treat someone else that way.
With cutting, there is a really negative stigma with the scars. Like even myself, I have scars on my arms and wrists and everything. And if you're out on public, that's why people try to cover them up so much. And like if someone sees them, it's not. No one comes up to you and says, "Oh, are you okay?" It's always, "Oh, look at that," and with like a disgusted look on their face instead of being comforting. So I think that if we notice some students with that on their arms or anyone in the community, you should talk to them and not look at them with disgust, because that just makes the problem worse. Yeah.
This girl in our class committed suicide about a month ago. She was with us for the first semester, and it's a very humble, nice girl, young lady, and a few of us were aware of her problem, and we tried. She lost her stepfather, and her boyfriend hung himself in jail, and it was she didn't say she was going to kill herself, but we all tried to help her, and I would just say this, we tried to help her as best we could, giving her information. There's one thing I wish that we had done that we didn't do that I want to bring up is we didn't give her name to somebody at this college that's involved in counseling, because we knew, even though she didn't say she was going to kill herself, all the signs were there. I mean, she didn't have to say she was thinking of suicide. I mean, everything, when I talked to her, she was weeping for 45 minutes straight, and it broke my heart. She didn't say she was going to kill herself. Otherwise, I would have, many of you here are familiar with Marchman Act and Baker Act. You know, we have to, remember, we have to utilize that as a weapon. If someone says that they're going to kill themselves or harm somebody else in a suicidal state, we have to try to, use that method, because they're a danger themselves. I mean, it's life or death. And this girl had 1 foot in death, 1 foot in life. And the only thing I can say is that we didn't pass her name on to either a teacher, a professor, or now, of course, I know these folks by name, that they could have talked to her, and then they could have put her into a place where she's safe. They need, these people that are ready to kill themselves need a safe haven, and for their own good, because time heals. There's a lot of things that heals, but if you can get them to a safe place for a while, that increases the probability that this person's heart is going to heal up, or soul is going to heal up, or spirit, to the point where they can function normally again in life. And if there's anybody in our sphere of influence, family members, friends, or neighbors that we think might be suicidal, and we just need to encourage them, give them empathy, encourage them to seek counseling, in that counseling doesn't help everybody, but it increases the probability they're going to get help, and we got to do something. I mean, everybody out here, we try to do something, so just try to encourage them to keep fighting. And a lot of people give up the fight and they don't want help, that's true. But I just think about this girl. I was watching TV one day, and they were talking about this story. There was all these starfish coming up on shore, like thousands of them. This little girl was throwing the starfish one at a time back in the sea, and this guy goes, "What are you doing? There's thousands of starfish here. You can't possibly save one." She goes, "Yeah, but I saved this one, didn't I?" So we can't save them all. Yes, a lot of people, they're con artists, they don't want help, they want to seek help. I was that way for years, but we can save some of them. There's something every one of us can do to encourage people, to give them an ear, a shoulder to cry on, to listen to them, to tell them that it's worth living. You are of value. There's a purpose for your life. You can go on, and if we have to go to crisis intervention mode. Crisis intervention mode is for their own good, and we need to let family members know about it, and their friends know about it, that this person, I've been talking to this person, and it looks like they're going to want to kill themselves. Therefore, we need to initiate some type of lifeline where they can be put in a safe haven for a period of time, where they can heal up to the point where they can be, once again, be productive citizens of society and enjoy a higher level of peace in their life.
And I just want to make it a point that you should take it seriously. It's not a trivial thing if someone comes up to you and tells you that they want to kill themselves. You can save a lot of lives that way. You shouldn't keep it a secret. You should tell someone so they can get help and be in a place where you can't hurt yourself. So it's a very serious thing.
That's very important, what you just brought up. I think that it needs to be understood in our community that basically, how do I put this? There are so many more people who attempt suicide than complete suicide. Some of you may be familiar with the statistics, but basically that maybe 3 times as many women attempt suicide as men, whereas 3 times as many men complete suicide, that is, have death by suicide, as women. And that's a significant statistic, I believe. The other issue that I just want to leave you thinking about is the term commit suicide or committed suicide. When my brother died, I was in a writing class, and I did a research paper on how my family might survive this suicide and come together and move forward. And in doing that paper, I basically had a sick feeling whenever I heard that phrase, committed suicide. And after doing my research, it came back to me that that's truly an antiquated term. It has roots going hundreds and hundreds of years back in Europe and so forth. And it just won't leave our vocabulary. It won't leave our speech. There are other ways to express this, and Dr. Joyner has said death by suicide is one. But whenever I'm watching the nightly news or hear about something, I keep hearing that phrase, committed suicide, and I just cringe inside as a survivor. And so just wanted to leave you with that thought.
As far as final thoughts go, I'd like to say, if somebody wants to talk to you, just listen. I mean, yeah, there are some licensed therapists in here. I know I'm certainly not. So I would be very careful of any advice that I would offer anybody who's feeling suicidal, even from my own experience. You know, I don't know what the right thing to say is or the wrong thing to say. I think listening and encouraging really it would be the most important thing. And the second kind of has to do, everybody kind of touched on a little bit, the stigma of suicide. You know, you don't see somebody with pneumonia and go, oh God, they got pneumonia. Somebody with multiple sclerosis, and they're less of a person because they have MS. It's the same thing with depression and feeling suicidal. It's a disease. The way you think is affected. So we shouldn't look at any of these people as less of a person. I like to think that I'm not less of a person. You know, sure, I made a mistake in a weakened mental state of mind at one point in my life. You know, but I've come leaps and bounds since then. I've been doing, this is my fourth semester here at Daytona State to be a registered nurse. I've been on the president's list or dean's list every semester. You know, I've really turned my life around, and unfortunately, I kind of had to find my own hope, and it was a little bit of a struggle, and I had some help along the way here and there. But I think that after the aftermath of me waking up in the hospital like a month later with this hole in my head, and just really trying to piece together reality at that point, what was real and what wasn't, it's kind of surreal. I had a lot of people there for me, and it meant a lot. But you know, there were a handful of people that were looking down on me for what I did. One had made a comment to me, you know, I can't believe you put your mother through this. It about devastated, about threw me right into wanting to do it again, you know, because I got very ashamed of what I had done and the decision that I had made. Obviously, I didn't let it get the best of me, and I'm here today. And I think that, yeah, we definitely need to treat suicide and depression and anything along those lines, you know, understand that it's a clinical thing. It's a disease like alcoholism or anything else. You know, you get your mind trapped into this mindset, and you know, it's like trying to pitch a ball with a broken arm. It's just not going to work, and you're not going to do the right things. And then my last final thought is, through my experiences, I'm not a deeply religious person. I do like to think I'm a bit spiritual. I'm kind of liberal in my ideas a bit. But I borrow from Zen Buddhism. They teach a philosophy of yin and yang that mathematically it's perfect. You can't have light without dark. You can't have hot without cold. You always need something to compare to, always. So without a bad day in our lives, we really would not appreciate the good days. So next time, you know, not that anybody here is depressed or anything, but you see somebody having a bad day, or you yourself are having a bad day, learn to appreciate the bad stuff in life. Because when you can appreciate the bad stuff in life, it's at that moment that the good stuff in life come to light. You know, without bad, there can't be any good. It's just mundane and boring. So that's about where I'll leave it at that.
I guess as far as my last thoughts is, like everyone has said, it is an actual issue. It's not just something that you can just turn off, or someone has a weak mind, or any of that nature, because you may sit there, they can get over it. To people who are battling it and dealing with it and the thoughts, it's like your brain has control, and no matter how many times you want to say, no, I can get over it, it's really hard without the proper help. And so I think maybe sometimes people don't do anything because maybe they feel powerless, and they maybe think that there's nothing they can do. There's a whole lot you can do. I know from personal experience, having a friend that wanted to, all I had to do was go tell a counselor, and they handled it from there. And I would rather have that person hate me than die, you know, from suicide and not be here at all. Because I think in the end, he would not hate me. He might in the moment, and at the time he did, but there have been days where he thanks me a lot. And so I think the key to it is don't think you're powerless, because you're not. Just saying one thing, hi to somebody, or going to tell somebody something is wrong with someone can make a world of difference.